Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop news and role-playing game design podcast. I'm Shawn Merwin, here with Teos Abadia. Teos, we have an excellent show lined up this week.
Yes, we have Shannon Appelkline on our show talking about designers and dragons' origins, and I am super excited. I am such a fan of everything that man has created. I've got all his various iterations, and I love them so much, and I can't wait for more.
Yep. Whether you are interested in the history of the game, the history of the companies, the history of the individual products, Shannon has written about all of those. So our main segment this week is going to be our interview with Shannon. But first, we're going to do an interview with you all, because you're all invited to send us messages via our Patreon Discord, via YouTube, via Mastodon. Email us at masteringdnd@gmail.com. Hit us up on Bluesky. Ask us at conventions. Scream questions out your window. We'll answer them all.
I hear
We're
one
going
now.
to start this. In fact, I do. This came to us via Patreon Discord and Andy Demps, who asked, what should happen with adventures like Cloud Giant's Bargain that are lost to time? I've been thinking about this with Living Greyhawk. There's hundreds of adventures that are prohibited from being distributed for no good reason that I can discern. And it's a really good question. It's something that's on my mind quite frequently, being the writer of some of those things that have been lost to time. And I think the important question is two parts. It's what should happen and what can happen, because those are two very different questions. The what should happen depends on who you are. If you're Wizards of the Coast, what should happen is one question. If you're an original writer of one of those pieces of content, that's a different question. If you're a fan, that's another question of whether they should be released. I can tell you right now, there must be things out there that Wizards of the Coast does not want published for very good reasons. There are things that I wrote that I don't want out there for various reasons.
Come on, your fan fiction is amazing.
Yeah. So should is a question that you're going to get a different answer to depending on who you talk to. Can is another question with so many sub questions about it. Teos, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, some of them just get into a crack, right? Like Cloud Giant's Bargain, or you wrote Quest for the Bronze Bottom Bach. They're both released the same year, right around the same time. And, we got paid, so we're done, as far as anybody can figure out. Our job is done. They own it. Well, that becomes an interesting question, right? So does AC Inc. own it and Penny Arcade? Does Wizards? Is it co-owned? It's hard to know exactly how these were created and who really sort of owns it. And I think it's that crack that it falls in that causes the problem for some of those, because they're dual owned. Living Greyhawk ends up being in this weird situation where sometimes people were not paid. So I wrote for Living Greyhawk. None of my stuff was paid. Other people did get paid. And the way those contracts were, or even if you got a contract, differ to where you might have some sort of ownership. So even if Wizards wanted to put out the Living Greyhawk, they would have to go back and recreate that history and figure out whether the author needs to be talked to or worked with. And so it's just not going to happen, right? And it's not even clear they want it because it's non-canonical. So it'd only be from a maybe historical standpoint. And, I think that even if they wanted to use that material, they would have to probably consult lawyers and all of that. And at that point, it just all falls apart, right?
Yeah. So that's a very concise way of saying it's not out there because it probably can't be. And as much as we might want to see it, it may be better off just left in the past.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, and I will say,
in some cases.
For me, Cloud Giant's Bargain is one of the things I'm happiest to have written. Like, I think it just, despite a very complicated authoring process, is one of the things I'm kind of most proud of. And so I would love it to be in people's hands. I also think it's a great thing to run after you run the Ack Inc. book. So it's this perfect segue. The levels actually match up, not even by design. So I'd love for it to be out there, and I don't need any money for it. I mean, sure, if someone wants to give me money, but I got paid. And it's really just down to Ack Inc. and Wizards, Penny Arcade and Wizards someday having a conversation enough to do it. The files exist, all of that.
Except in the case of mine, the
Bronze Bottom
quest
Bach.
for the Bronze Bottom Bach, it's not just Wizards and Penny Arcade. It's all of the individual people who own IP within Penny Arcade. So you have Scott Kurtz, right? You have it could be tons of people who then you have to go to them to get their approval or change the adventure. And so it's not just, Wizards doesn't want to do it or Penny Arcade doesn't want to do it. It's a landfill. A landmine.
Landmine, yeah. With Cloud Giant's Bargain, I periodically will speak to somebody at Wizards or Penny Arcade. Maybe once a year I mention it to somebody, and I always get head nodding like, oh yeah, we should do that. And I'm like, just release it for Extra Life. Just release it on a site somewhere for Extra Life. Generate, donations for a cause with it. And nobody is out there nobody has ever said to me, we don't want to release it. But it's that thing that someone has to go fight a battle, right? Someone has to go and say, on top of all the things I have on my plate, I should talk to some manager or this other company and work out whether we can do this. And so I think it just never happens. And in fact, I would suspect that if it ever happens, it'll probably happen because someone just forgets that there is some arrangement to be had and just releases it for some reason. That is the most likely way it would ever come out.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And that's why these conversations with Shannon Appelkline, I think, and his books are so interesting, is because we've been through this process of these stories behind even these little things that we've done can be so interesting and so intriguing that I just love this idea of hearing the story behind the release of these adventures.
It's fascinating. Yep.
We have a question from Davaram8064 via YouTube. Last week, I watched a video from Esper the Bard about, quote, what would you do if you were in charge of D&D? I immediately thought I would want to relaunch a living campaign. I didn't participate in Living Greyhawk, but that worldwide program seems like it was absolutely awesome. So my question is, could a living campaign be done in this day and age? What could that look like? What would be the impediments to a successful campaign? Teos, I think you and I have done whole episodes on living campaigns, Living Greyhawk recaps, and so on. So, go check those out if they're still available. Is a worldwide living campaign a possibility? Certainly. We've talked about why they succeed, why they failed. Here are a few general thoughts, and feel free to add yours, Teos, as we go. One, large-scale living campaigns are a marketing expense that can be costly, not just in terms of money, but in terms of resources. Talking about volunteers, talking about time commitments, talking about communication between all the elements that need to be in place to make a worldwide large-scale living campaign work. If you cannot get behind that sort of expense, then it's a non-starter right out of the gate. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially because of the way that companies like Wizards tend to think about things, to even just plan it, they will want to fly several people from wherever they are into the same rooms, probably multiple times. And so the costs just pile on, and you may think you could do it cheaply, sure, but no, it will be a lot of rigmarole, and things will happen. And if you look at past organized play campaigns, you'll find these examples, whether it's the Star Wars passport the RPGA had that you could fill out, as you traveled around and played adventures, or the enormous box that got mailed out for D&D encounters with a camera, a digital camera in each one, and minis and all kinds of other things. it's so hard to avoid some manager going, and you know what we'll do is this big splash, and that can make sense, right? But it just the costs pile up for so many reasons.
Yeah. We'll touch on that a little bit more later. Another two, the larger and more successful these campaigns get, the further out of the company's control it gets. And for better or worse, that is not optimal for any sort of company or organization. So just take, for example, we put together this Great Living campaign, and it gets viral and it spreads worldwide, and it's being run at some game shop in Nowhereville, USA, and something goes wrong, right? There's, you name it. It could be anything. It could be not even with the game, but just a conflict.
Event, yeah.
Yep. And what happens is that becomes a problem for the company that sponsors the game. Even though they have nothing to do with it, all they did was create the material and give it to people. And then I saw that in the early 2000s, before social media. Now with social media, all it takes is one little spark that has nothing to do with the organization running it, and it becomes a huge problem. And so it's, if unless you can control all the elements of play, it's a risk.
It is a risk. Yep. Sure. Even while it's a great promise too. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. As great as a large living campaign can be for creating community, it can also become a victim of its own success. And I saw this as a triad member for Living Greyhawk, where people would come to me and say, I really want to get involved, but there's already 20 adventures for your region and 50 adventures over here and 30 adventures over here. And I feel like I don't even know where to start. So unless you spend the resources again to keep opening on-ramps and tracks of play that will bring people in, you're dissuading newer casual players from getting involved. And like point 2 above, a strong community is only good if it's welcoming and positive. And a large campaign will enable small segments to take hold in different areas. And if those segments are not positive and supportive, they become toxic, which then becomes a dissuasion for play rather than a persuasion for play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right. And 4 for me is a living campaign sometimes necessitates certain kinds of adventures, which attracts a certain kind of play style. Then if you get players coming in who don't appreciate that play style that the adventures by necessity have to encourage, it becomes a dissuasion again. I don't want to play linear adventures where I move from one to the other. So therefore, I don't like D&D because I think that's what D&D is. And all your marketing money is pushing this sort of play. It's counterproductive. So now I have to spend more money to create different kinds of play, to create different kinds of on-ramps. And then if I get the wrong player for those on-ramps, they would have loved this other thing. But so it becomes not just a marketing expense, but a full-on segment of the company itself, which may not help in the long run.
Yeah, and organized play campaigns require a lot of expertise, but a lot of the people who've been doing them have been doing them for a really long time. And so trying to mix innovation with expertise is very difficult. And it's super hard to communicate that to the company, where the company has often moved on and doesn't remember those older lessons because they weren't involved in the super details, right? If you look at like Wizards of the Coast in the 3E era, didn't super understand what Living Greyhawk was doing, and in fact saw it as kind of a thorn in their side. Why do you keep telling us our spells are broken? Because they are, and they hated that. They hated the feedback that a certain spell had been blocked in the campaign because it was so problematic, right? that teleport or not teleport, polymorph was not allowed in the campaign for so long was something that the designers just hated. How dare you act this way? But it's just one of many examples of that disconnect between the organized play campaign and the company. And what you would wish could happen is that you could have a really good communication. And the better the communication, the more that then this can be a huge success, right? A successful organized play campaign comes when you can line up all these factors: the marketing attempts, right? The introduction of the campaign as an on-ramp for people, right? So that you go, oh, I want to play this game D&D. Wait a minute. I can just show up at the local gaming store and every week play. Oh, now I really want to be a part of this, right? Or that you jump into this community and the community is supportive and welcoming and creates all these, neat, awesome ties. That is it at its best. And in fact, maybe even provide some information to the company on what products to make and how to, what people are looking for and what kinds of class features work well or which don't. And that can be welcome. That is organized play at its best. Achieving that requires a really strong hand, and it begs for a management that understands how to work with the people who are in charge of it. And you don't always have that. And so it's very difficult to have all those factors line up. Usually what will happen instead, and I'll shut up in a second because I want to hear you say, Shawn, but usually what happens is you get this sort of arc where initially everybody's on board and management has said, let's do this. And the start of 5th edition was clearly this way. You had very strong voices saying, we're going to do this, we're going to support it. And you have marketing messages and everybody's coming in and it's all great. And then it starts to feel like work and you step away from supporting it and it just starts to go downwards to where we are now, where people aren't really sure whether Adventurers League is a thing or not, right? Is it dead? Is it kind of? Is it, does the company care? Nobody knows, because it's just been dropped. And the end of 4th edition Living Forgotten Realms is the same way, right? Where people internally stopped understanding all of the things and being active members of it. And then it begins to fall apart.
Yeah. And I came across with this list of all the problems. 95% of the time, it's positive in my experience.
Yeah.
Generally, the game stores are great. Generally, the convention and the people that run them are great. Generally, the management is great. But unfortunately, because of the society we live in, the one problem, 5% of the time, completely drowns out all the positives because of social media, because of a mentality of looking for problems rather than looking for solutions. So, you have to weigh all of this as you think about establishing the framework for not even a living campaign, just an organized play campaign, which I think is a lighter version of a living campaign.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of work.
Yeah, and I'll say, just to make sure it's clear, I am enormously positive, and I would about organized play. And for any RPG company, I would say, absolutely, let's talk about how you can do that in a good way. I think every company could have a good way that they do this, and to some extent. And Wizards, for sure, could have a very positive way of running an organized play campaign. And they're trying to in various ways. We, in fact, have a Greyhawk campaign right now, which should be something we mention, right? That you can play, and it's increasing in its scope. But there are a lot of tensions there that you want to be aware of. And so having someone on your staff who understands this and a willingness to listen is one of the keys to understand how to run it at a scale that's right for the company, in an approach that's going to create positive community and all of these things. And that takes some work, which sometimes companies don't want to do.
We have more questions, but I want to get into our news, of which there is, again, a lot. And we're going to start our news by talking about the new Unearthed Arcana article, which is a subclass update. So the new UA features updated subclasses that sort of were there in 2014, but the team thinks that some maybe new design is needed. So they are providing design and quality of life updates to bring them into the 2024 PHB format. A majority of these come from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, but it also includes the Oathbreaker, which was in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. So we get new versions of the Path of the Spirit Guardian, which is formerly the path of the ancestral guardian. We get the path of the Storm Herald Barbarian, the Cavalier Fighter, and a new take on the Drunken Master called the Warrior of Intoxication. And then the Oathbreaker, as originally mentioned. So, Teos, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts here?
Well, it's been a fun, lively conversation on our Discord.
Mhm.
I mean, Warrior of Intoxication is the strangest things. I'm weary of the way. We have taken away the word way of. I'm not sure. There's got to be some reason for that. But intoxication is a really strange thing. And I don't know why they took out Drunken Master. The level 3 feature is Drunken Technique. The level 6 is Tipsy Sway. So it's not like we're saying don't drink. Or maybe even leaning more into it. And I don't
Mhm.
know what's going on here. I also don't know, and I just fully don't know. Should these Unearthed Arcanas be, and should future products be, updating old subclasses? Because we were told they were fully compatible, but apparently now they need to be brought in line with old ones. Is this of interest? And our Discord, only a few people weighed in, but 85% or so of the people that responded to our poll on the Discord said they want new designs, not old updates. And it's a strange choice that I think maybe lowers the excitement people could have, and maybe undermines that piece that Dan Ayub said of, hey, it's all one edition, and we're moving forward with interesting designs. I don't know that this is demonstrably better.
Yeah. Ignoring design, ignoring all of that, just business wise, if you update these to 2024, are you selling them? Or are you giving them to people who have already bought the books that they were in?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, in other words, we already have a Cavalier Fighter. Are you going to release a new book that has the Cavalier Fighter that I now have to buy?
Mm-hmm.
But I can already use the old one. So is it going to be switching to the right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this weird territory that as a business I would want to get away from.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that. I
Yeah.
understand why you would, but it becomes this gray area, as Teos said, of you told us everything before is still good, so why are you updating it, and why
Yeah.
are you making me pay for the update?
Yeah. And a possible answer is, well, there are too many subclasses, or there are enough that it would be better, posting more or creating more would create a lot of burden on the system, possibly. So, to which I'd say, great, do something else. Like
Yeah.
then don't do this. I don't know that we really need. Some of these subclasses that have been at my table, they're fine. Like I don't know that we really need. This
Yeah.
is not where I'd love to see the awesome creative minds on the staff focused, but that's
Mhm.
just my opinion.
Yep. So you can check that out, of course, at D&D Beyond and give your thoughts as soon as they release the survey for that. We have news about Tales from Woodcreek, and it has started with a bang. This is a new actual play from the Dungeon Dudes YouTube channel. A session 0 was posted 2 weeks ago, and then the first chapter was released on Halloween. In the session 0 play, we begin with the Dungeon Dudes in their studio in Toronto. Deborah Ann Wall is the DM, and the players are Anjali Bhamani, Ginny D, and then Monty and Kelly, the Dungeon Dudes. In the game, they get captured. So Deborah Ann Wall tells the players grab a D or grab a D20, grab your character sheet. Then they go out into a stretch limo to simulate being in a mob boss's carriage. Then they go on a boat ride and then through a park. And all the while, they're joined by various other actual play or streaming personalities. All right. So, Teos, lead us on from here.
I mean, it's amazing, right? And that was just this session 0, which I understand they filmed later as a sort of promotional thing. They have released also on Halloween Chapter 1, so the first actual session of the game for Tales from Woodcreek. And here we have Iman Vellani, the actress who plays Kamala Khan and Miss Marvel. She joins them, which is a joy. And they do a bit of travel as well there, and they end up the bulk of it being done in a schoolroom that's set up as the set for the game. Really impressive set design. It reminds me of one of Deborah's other, the Relics and Rarities, I think it was called, which had this beautiful set design. This similarly has an incredible production behind it. And all of it, I mean, this is great, right? And I hope that this succeeds. I love the Dungeon Dudes. Wish everybody great success. The first session 0, it had about 180,000 views in 2 weeks. I think it's about 193 at the time of this recording. Chapter 1 was at 40K a day later views. Now it's, I think, at 71K. I hope that this works, because it feels like this is a big investment trying to say, let's create an exciting, engaging actual play that will get draw in lots of viewers. And boy, you sort of feel like, well, if not this, what would, right?
Right.
So we'll see how this goes and whether it can grow. I think actual play is being tested, as are many areas of our hobby. And so I hope that there is the possibility here for lots of fans to view lots of different actual plays. So we'll see how this goes over time.
Mm-hmm. And we go from actual plays to let's just play. We have a new Legends of Greyhawk website. Legends of Greyhawk is the official 5e organized play campaign for Greyhawk, run by Baldman Games. The site itself includes a content timeline, blog posts on the recent releases, links to their Discord, and an explanation of the various regions of play that include Greyhawk, Ferrand, Highfolk. There are going to be special events across all regions, and then a forthcoming region that is as yet unnamed.
Mm-hmm.
You can also learn about all of the currently available adventures. They can't be purchased yet, but when they are available for purchase, you will be able to do it there at legendsofgreyhawk.com.
Awesome.
And while we're at it, let's talk about Wizards of the Coast and D&D hiring. Could it be a time of growth in the D&D team? Well, we'll find out, and Teos is going to tell us all about this.
Yeah, executive producer for D&D, Greg Bilsland, shared on LinkedIn, "Are you an aspiring wizard looking to take that first level in Spellcaster?" And he shared 9 roles that are open across the D&D team, spanning art, design, production, franchise technology, and marketing. So there are all kinds of, from social content creator to scenic graphic designer, principal game designer, creative brand manager, a number of different jobs. There are also some other jobs that are interesting out there. I looked through their job site. They have senior finance manager for D&D and others that span tech and strategy. One of the more interesting ones that I saw in the list that Greg shared was creative brand manager. Serve as a brand steward for the D&D franchise, guiding research, developing creative reference, and providing brand assurance and product approvals. You'll uphold and communicate the creative vision of D&D across a growing slate of internal and external initiatives. You will act as the franchise creative vault keeper, managing information, providing clarity and established creative strategy, building IP toolkits and other reference materials, and shepherding brand approvals internally and with external partners. And that sounded super interesting as a job.
Yeah, I think that particular job highlights this idea that we want D&D everywhere. And so we are looking at partners to make all of this happen. And for me, that feels positive. It feels like we want this brand to grow, which will help the game grow. And so more power to anyone applying to any of those positions.
Absolutely.
We get a preview of the Forgotten Realms adventures in Faerun on D&D Beyond. A new blog post is up that shares information from the upcoming realms that appear in the new Adventure in Faerun book. So the book is out now, I believe.
Yep.
But if you want a preview, we get a look at Baldur's Gate, Calamshan, Dale Lands, Icewind Dale, and the Moonshae Isles. The articles look at the factions and inhabitants, the notable sites, and random encounters there. You can also claim a copy of the adventure called The Tenebrous Stone, a chilling adventure for level 3 characters. In it, heroes must uncover a malevolent artifact and rescue a village from an ancient evil and carve their own legend into the tapestry of Faerun. The article does have a claim button on it to claim it and advice on how to add it to maps and create your own campaign for it. So both of those are in our show notes.
Well, Shawn, up next is Daggerheart character folios, and I was really surprised by this, as we'll get into. The Darrington Press store now has available a Daggerheart folio. For $26, you get a binder. If you're used to sort of what Magic the Gathering puts out for cards and storage, it's got an elastic wrap around a sort of vinyl, pretty sleeve with the Daggerheart logo on one side and the Daggerheart domain wheel on the other. This includes a dry wet erase character sheet, 2 large top-loading sleeves for character sheets and notes, and then 20 pages of 9-slot sleeves, like for Magic cards, but these are sized to store all of the cards in the Daggerheart core set. So you can store all of your cards there, and of course you could sort them so like the ones you use are in the front or whatever. And I just thought this is really interesting, great product. Why was this not part of the just concluded Kickstarter for character decks, which a lot of people said, there's nothing new here. If I already own the set, there's nothing being offered to me to entice me in to, say, buy another set of cards. And wouldn't have this been perfect? I don't understand companies, Shawn.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I do understand somewhat is game design. And there is so much news to dive into about this game, but we'll just focus on one. The Patchwork Paladin has an excellent blog post looking at cool ways to use fear when running Daggerheart games. She also shares. Sorry, what did I say?
You made a new game that I'm excited to play called Daggerheart, and that sounds great too.
Daggerheart, let's do it. Running Daggerheart games. She also shares in how her games have found that fear is something you want to use often and not hoard to create dramatic moments as often as possible. And we'll talk about Daggerheart more, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But we're learning more and more about how the levers of hope and fear and armor slots and all of these different levers can let you do many different things. And the trick of this now is going to be to figure out just how far those levers can go before they break. So we will be keeping an eye on our own play, our own design as we move through our understanding of this game.
Patchwork Paladin makes a great point that, it's pretty easy to gather a bunch of fear. And I saw this in my game that by Jeremy Crawford. And Jeremy Crawford ran this game where this totally came up, and he had a mountain of fear that he could use. And Patchwork Paladin makes the point, like, you don't want to start the encounter with 12 fear. You want to be using it, even if it's not super optimally, because you'll make the story better and create these neat situations. And I think that's really good advice. Yeah.
We go from RPGs to board games, where we learn Renegade Games is going to reprint Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep, its Scoundrels of Skullport expansion are both being reprinted. It's a game I love. I play it as often as I can. It was first released in 2012, and we have heard that an early draft would have been set in Dark Sun. So a little history there for those of you who are looking ahead to Shannon Appelkline talking to us in our main segment there, a little history lesson. Mm-hmm. You can pre-order the game now on the Renegade site, a box set for $55 and the expansion for $40. It is likely that this is a sign of strengthening relationship between not just Renegade and Wizards of the Coast, but all companies who want to license things from Wizards or get new games or old games out there. Renegade also recently published Axis and Allies and Robo Rally for Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, it's a great point about the larger willingness that we're seeing. That is really interesting.
We played it a few months ago, and one of the players had never played it before and did not own it and could not find a copy.
Wow.
So I am now going to make sure that I forward to them this note so they are able to buy their very own version.
I adore that game.
Yep. All right, Teos, how much stuff is in D&D again?
Yeah, in part 4, Echo Hawk looks at novels. The blog runs through the history of novels and fictions from Gary Gygax writing The Gnome Cache in several parts for The Dragon under the pen name of Garrison Ernst. So you know it's a great novel when even Gary Gygax has to fake his name. And then the first novel is Quag Keep, written by Andre Norton in 1976. There are the 38 titles in the Endless Quest series when that choose your own adventure format starts being popular, and TSR jumps into it in 1979. This was an idea championed by Rose Estes, and some titles sold over 400,000 copies. This all led to TSR's first D&D fiction in 1984 in the form of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. There are all kinds of choose your own adventure things. In 85, there are 18 super endless quest game books, which included a tear-off bookmark hero with customizable attributes, and you rolled dice, sometimes to determine results, not just choosing a page. There was a cartoon series of these types of books. There were top secret, Oriental Adventures, Dragonlance, even the Endless Quest line, when it ended in 87, had 2 final lines of these game books, Laser Tag and Catacombs. It's worth noting that during the 1990s, TSR relaunched this Endless Quest series with 11 game books, and even during 5th edition, we saw 6 new versions of these released under license by Candlewick Press. Dragonlance is, of course, hugely important. James Lauder says that in 1990, TSR books accounted for 17% of sci-fi fantasy bestsellers at 2 large book chains, with most of the 23 releases that year being bestsellers. That's amazing. 70% of all Dragonlance fiction was published after Wizards bought TSR, but the line ended in 2008 with only 3 Random House Dragonlance books in 2022 to 2024. A total of 209 Dragonlance novels have been published. We get 15 Greyhawk novels, the first few written by Gygax starting in 85. FR has the famous Dark Walker on Moonshade, takes off in 1987. The Salvatore Drizzt novels, of course, hugely popular. To date, we have 302 Forgotten Realms novels. Spelljammer has 7, including 1 Spelljammer in 2024. Ravenloft had 20 novels during the TSR era, and even 1 in 2025. There have been a total of 24. Dark Sun had the famous Prism Pentad, but many other TSR series and one-offs, plus a re-release of the Pentad in 2008, 3 new Dark Sun novels during the 4E era for a total of 16, which means there are more Dark Sun novels than Greyhawk novels. Keep that for your trivia night. Mystara includes First Quest and basic D&D theme books, total of 15, Birthright 6, Planescape 5, Eberron, a surprising 39 novels between 2005 and 2012. An incredible 11 novels in the year 2006 alone.
Crazy.
It's amazing. Various other novels come out for specific adventures, 3 iconic characters. We can see the recent novels for the Fallbacks group of adventurers. Altogether, you have 684 novels, 218,000 pages. And if you bought them all at their original sticker price, it would be a cost of $6,528. So huge thanks to Echo Hawk for his continuing fascinating series on how much stuff there is in D&D. Love it.
Tip of the hat to you. And in our creator corner this week, we start with Mausritter Month. What is that, Teos?
Yeah, so Losing Games, Games Omnivorous, and Exalted Funeral are all working together with others to collaborate to create an all-new setting for Mausritter called Junk City. And they have 16 of Mausritter's community of third-party creators that are all grouping their projects together the way one can do in BackerKit. So Mausritter is an RPG where you play mice in a dangerous world. Junk City is their new neo-noir mystery sandbox that plunges mice into, and I'm quoting here, a sprawling urban wasteland of refuse and ruin. Rival factions clash over powerful shards left behind by a great magical disaster. In the chaos, the mice must navigate shifting alliances and dangerous streets as they search for a lost friend and uncover the secrets buried in the junk. You can find a collection pulling together all of these creator offerings on BackerKit, and you can then choose which of the ones you want to fund. There's a link in our show notes. If you bundle, if you choose several of them, you can save on shipping. And if you back 7 projects, you get bonus wooden meeples. So you can see all of that on the BackerKit page. Do a search for Mausritter Month. How about you, Shawn? What's going on with the what we call Daggerheim
Drakkenheart.
Drakkenheart.
Dungeons of Drakkenheim, the Daggerheart version, the Kickstarter. If you are listening to this, it is live, unless your name is Teos, because it is not live right now.
I'm in the past.
But it will be live. Yes, I live in the past as well. So let me know how it's doing. We are very excited as a partner for Monty and Kelly and everyone there at the Dungeon Dudes whole organization, and Darrington Press being involved. We are super excited. So we hope that you will check it out. If you are interested in Dungeons of Drakkenheim but never got a chance to play it, now's your chance there. If you're interested in Daggerheart but don't know where to get started, this will be a great setting adventure. You can get a campaign frame for free by backing right now, so you can get a look at what it is that we're working on with this book. And
fantastic.
The great designer Mike Underwood, who worked on as an additional designer on the rules for Daggerheart, is doing this version of Dungeons of Drakkenheim. So super excited. We hope that it takes off and pleases all of the people.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Shawn.
Yep. And now I think we need to go talk to one Shannon Appelkline to learn about the history of D&D and all of its various forms.